Hey everybody, I have a real quick book review today. I'll try to make it real short for y'all. This is The Big Nowhere by James Ellroy. This came out in 1998, and this is going to be no spoilers at all. I never like to spoil things here. And this is the second book in the LA Quartet by Mr. Ellroy. And previously on my channel, I've reviewed The Black Dahlia, the first book in this collection. This particular edition, if you're curious, is by Everyman's Library. It has all four of them. It's quite big. They're an absolutely fantastic publishing house. And if you'd like to read this, this is the copy I'd always recommend. It comes with all four. Sewn spine. It has a cloth bookmark. It is just gorgeous and wonderful to read. Beautiful, wonderful, high quality paper. It's a great reading experience all around. I think when you're going with the textile sort of book, physical book rather than a e-reader, it makes a big difference what the quality of the book you're reading, and this is second to none as always. So this book is essentially about a couple different things. There are three characters in this book. The first is a guy named Danny Upshaw. He's a detective, and this is in LA in 1950, late 40s, 1950. And you also have a guy named Mel Considine, who is, I believe, a lieutenant with the LA Police Department. And you have another guy named Buzz Meeks, who is an ex-cop, and he's working for Howard Hughes. We're blending in those real figures as he did in The Black Dahlia. And he works, I guess, as like you would call it, a fixer. His guy for Howard Hughes, and he also works with Mickey Cohen, the real life gangster, running tricks for him basically. And the way this kind of starts is you have Danny Upshaw, the detective, who is tasked with solving a murder mystery, very much in the style of Black Dahlia. And this murder in this book is a killer who is killing what appears to be in his modus operandi is homosexual men with just terrible graphic mutilation. And I will say that as a warning, this book is tremendously graphic. I have mentioned that The Black Dahlia is also graphic and quite a brutal book. This book is more so, and it feels even more mean-spirited. It's wonderfully written. It is often funny, as Ellroy is, but it is tremendously graphic and dark. And I would describe, just from having read two of Ellroy's books, he's just brutal. He shows you the way that it was. He highlights very clearly the corruption of government and politics and the police department of the time, and he just doesn't shy away from it. If it's the way it was, it's the way he's going to show it to you. So just a warning. If you have a weak stomach, you're going to probably vomit when you read this, but it's not graphic for the sake of graphicness or shock value. It's just the way it was. But you have this detective, like I said, Danny Upshaw, investigating this murder, and you have these other two characters. You have the fixer for Howard Hughes and Mickey Cohen, and you have Mal Considine, who's working with as a lieutenant, and he's investigating. We're dealing with the Red Scare in the early 50s, the late 40s, and eventually the three of them come together and they form a sort of task force, if you will, almost like the Untouchables, to deal with a group that is a supposed communist group, almost like a propaganda group. And there's a big trial that's going on. And when I first started reading this, my first thought in the first, let's say, 50, 75 pages was, I like this, but my very first thing I noticed was that there's a lot more going on than the Black Dahlia. I mean, of course, because there are 3 points of view in here. Now, there were two main characters in the Black Dahlia, and if I can remember them correctly, I believe it was Bucky and Lee, but it really dealt with like one guy. It was one point of view, and here we have three, and it switches between them every chapter. So I like multiple POV novels, but you definitely have to pay attention a bit more because you have to try to wrap your head around multiple characters. This is still written in the third person. Yes, I believe in the third person. But there's a lot more to deal with and a lot more that you have to wrap your head around. So I found it a little bit challenging, to be honest, at the beginning. And I found myself for the first, let's say 100 pages, kind of like, I kind of just want to get back to Danny Upshaw and get back to that murder investigation because I just love that 50s slang he's using and just that style and that sort of murder mystery. The way that Ellroy just so brilliantly takes things like Raymond Chandler novels, that kind of style, of course written in a different time period, but translates them into the 50s. And I just love it. But I have to say, as this book went on, and the three come together and form this sort of force, and all the plots start melding together, this just became fantastic. And I will say, as this book went on, each successive part of the book, just because I believe there are four parts of this book, four main parts, it just got better and better and better to the point where I could not put this book down. I read it in a few days. It's a little bit longer than the Black Dahlia. I think it's a little over 400 pages, so it's still not long, but longer. And I couldn't put this fucking book down, man. I mean, I really couldn't. It became so. I don't know what the word is. I just couldn't put it down. I think it got better with each successive part. It became so fast paced and frenetic and fantastic to read. And the thing about this book, and I think even more so than the Black Dahlia, is you really have to pay attention. There are so many characters in this book, many characters that come and go. Some characters, show up once in a while. Some just come and go. And there are lines in this book that seem like throwaway lines, and they're not. So you really have to pay attention when you're reading this, because things will pop up way later, and you'll go, uh-huh. And the thing that I think is genius about this, having a three-person point of view narrative, is that there are things, maybe even, and not getting into spoilers, but just little literary devices related to, let's say, the murder investigation that Detective Upshaw is working on. And there are little clues that have been planted in your brain way earlier in the book that pop up way later. And you have that moment where you go, I remember that, but it's a different character. And that character doesn't have the knowledge of that. And I found myself, when you say I'm screaming at the TV, I'm screaming at the book. Why don't you say something? He doesn't know. They don't know. They don't know what's going on because they don't have that information the other character has. And I think that's the real genius of the book and the way he wrote it. And frankly, I found this book better than the Black Dahlia. And, I've seen people say that they find this book better than the Black Dahlia. They find even some of the later ones, the LA Confidential or White Jazz, and even some of his later works, his other compendium sort of works that he's done. I think it's I don't remember the name of his other one, but he's got the American Tabloid and Blood is a Rover and a couple other ones I'm not aware of. But he has he has another trilogy. And some people find those better. And I'm kind of starting to understand it because it is this big, overarching sort of thing that's going on here. It is a very large, grand scope that he's writing for. And I think it is paramount that you read these in order. I don't think these aren't necessarily direct sequels in the sense that if you read, let's say you read The Big Nowhere first before Black Dahlia, they won't make sense. You could do that. But I highly recommend that you read these in order because you just start to see the overarching narrative of what's going on. Not just in the plot, but of what Ellroy as a writer is trying to do. I mentioned in the Black Dahlia that I just think that he's doing something incredible in trying to take this sort of style and elevating it in a literary sense that most authors would not do with crime. And that is no more apparent in a book like The Big Nowhere. So I think that this was a 5-star read. It was tremendous. I was gripped by it, and I cannot wait to read LA Confidential. This gets the highest praise from me. I highly recommend it. I would say if you haven't read it, I would recommend, like I said, to go and read The Black Dahlia first. A tremendous book. But yeah, definitely highly recommend this. And I'll be back with you with something more. Right now I'm reading The Crossing by Cormac McCarthy, and I'll probably be back soon with a review of that. It's a great book so far. I'm about halfway through, and I really like it. And I don't know what I'll read next or anything like that, but yeah, I'll be back with something. If you've read this or more of James Ellroy, I know in my Black Dahlia video, I had a lot of comments from people who really liked Ellroy, and that was great to hear. And yeah, the bug has caught me. I really find him just a tremendous writer. I mean, truly one of the great American writers, I guess I would say. From the 2 books I've read, this is just, when you read books that are this good, sometimes it's hard to go back to other authors because it's like, he's better, you know what I mean? Even though it's a different genre, it's just his writing ability is off the charts. So yeah. I also been watching a lot of great movies lately. I do Blu-ray stuff here. I mentioned Blu-rays I've gotten and things like that. I haven't bought any Blu-rays, but I've seen some great films recently. So I may do a review of some great movies that I've watched. I recently watched a movie called The Master by Paul Thomas Anderson, and that was a fantastic movie. So I might want to talk about that. But anyways, just thought I'd check in with all y'all and see how everybody's doing. Let me know what you've been reading. I always say that, what you've been watching. And I'll see you next time. Peace out.